All right, the purpose of this video is to basically talk about the MUX VST. So it's basically a $60 or €60 plugin that you can use to create your own virtual synthesizers and have really incredible flexibility in doing some pretty amazing routing. So basically what I'm going to do is I have a very basic layout here right now. This first track is just my audio for the video. I have some drum loops going on here as well. So this is 4 on the floor kick drum kind of deal with the last bar off, and then I have snares and a hi-hat pattern as well going on here. And then I have a standard chord progression, just really simple 8-bar chord progression that I'll be playing. And then another MIDI track here as well that will simulate the actual kicks in my kick track. So in order to get this started, I just simply drag and drop the the MUX VST onto my track, and I'm going to go into empty synth. So basically this doesn't produce any sound currently. So basically the synthesizer, the MUX, contains 2 pieces. There's what they call the modular area, which is where you can actually do the programming for your synthesizer, and then the front panel, which is this area here. I've clicked this pencil and it allows me to edit it, which I'll be doing in a little bit here. So I'm going to open up the modular area, and you'll see a couple of controls in here. There's a poly synth area, which doesn't do anything, so I'm just going to close it. And what this does is, if this actually had a sound generator in it, it would take MIDI out from my environment, push it into the synthesizer, and produce some kind of audio out. Since it currently doesn't do anything, I'm just going to delete it. And instead, I'm going to bring up the browser here. And from the browser, I'm going to grab a pad sound and drag it in. So now this is my synthesizer. If I double click it, these are all the settings. So you can have a couple of oscillators, sampler, noise, ring, all this other stuff available to you. I'm not going to talk about the details of the synthesizer. I'm really more about the programming of these pieces. And so in order to wire this thing up, it's really easy. You just drag the blue line and drag the red line. So the blue line is all your MIDI data, all your note on, note off information, aftertouch, that kind of stuff. This is the synthesizer that transforms these MIDI notes into audio, and then the red line is the audio going out. So if I happen to now tap my chords here, what you'll hear is the sound of this audio going on. And I have it quieted here just so that you can hear my voice over the sound. So that's what the audio sounds like, and I'm also going to now actually include the drums. So that's what the drums sound like. So what I want is for the drums, when the drum is firing, I want this chord to duck away. So to do that, I have a couple of different options. One option is to use a sidechain, which basically means that audio comes from some other source, comes into the plugin, and then the amplitude of the sound, whatever happens to be, is the thing that we use to actually cause the sound to duck. But I'm going to use a different technique, and that's to actually take a MIDI track and use a ducking pattern to basically do this. If you've ever seen LFO tool, this will become very familiar to you. So to do this, I first need to route the MIDI from this track. So this is what's going to trigger off my ducking pattern into this synthesizer. And to do that, at least in live, I send my MIDI output to the VST synthesizer and put it into track or into MIDI output 2. So I'm going to hit stop here. And I'm going to start hitting play. And when I do that, you should hear the MIDI sound going off. It's very, very faint. And that sound is these notes being fired. So what I really want to do is filter it out. Okay, so to filter it out, it's fairly easy. So basically, this is all the input of all 16 channels that are coming into the synthesizer. And what I need to do is filter it out. So I'll bring up the browser again here, and I'm going to get a splitter. So the splitter is in modules. And a MIDI splitter channel, and I just simply drag and drop it on here. So basically this is going to take all the MIDI inputs and it's going to split it out by channel. So now what this is doing is it's taking the MIDI input, and now we have only channel 1 information going. So while the MIDI here happens to be running, it will not trigger the pad. So when I start playing here, you can't hear the MIDI going off, even though it happens to be playing in the background. And so what we're going to do is we're going to now use this MIDI, which is going to be off of channel 2 here, because we had routed it to channel 2. We're going to put that into a ducking mechanism. So to do that, we need to bring in a multi-point editor. So multi-point envelope, I meant. So what a multi-point envelope looks like is something like this. I'm not going to draw out the envelope. I'm actually going to open this one here. So this is my ducking pattern that I'm going to use. A different video will describe how to create the editor. So basically what's going to happen is this is the start of my loop, and this one is the end of my loop. So basically when it receives one of these notes from this track, it's going to trigger this off, and it's going to run through this. And if it receives a note off before the end, it'll just keep on playing until the loop finishes. And I'm just going to run this down into here. So every time this receives a note on, it's going to trigger this envelope. So now we have this ducking pattern, and I'm actually going to show you what the ducking pattern is doing. So to do that, I'll just close this down here, and I'm going to get a modulation monitor out here. So what this does is it shows me the modulation that's actually taking place. Now before I'd shown you that there is MIDI data flowing around, audio data with the red, and now there's green. So this is the MIDI data going along. And if I hit play, you'll see this thing popping back and forth. And you can kind of see it running across here. Now the cool thing that I was going to show you before is now I can drag this monitor onto my synthesizer editor, so I can actually see it all the time rather than just seeing it kind of hidden away. And I can size it down here. All right. Make it smaller. Okay, so that's the modulator that's actually taking place. And what I want to do is I want to take this modulation information and I want to run it into an audio balancing utility. So audio. And it's 2-to-1. So what this utility does is it basically takes the audio that's coming out of this platform, and allows you to basically balance it. So what I'm going to do is not use that one. I'm going to use a mixer strip instead. So basically what this will do is the mixer strip has 3 inputs. It has gain, panning, and width. So what I'm going to do is, if I double click this open, I have controls for all of this. I'm going to drag this control over here and make it a little bit larger. So basically here's my my pan control. So I can pan it. I can set the stereo width. I can set the gain control, and then you'll see a couple of audio happening there as well. So I'm going to drag my ducking pattern into the mixer tab, and it'll ask me where I want. And in this case, I want gain. And in this case, I'm going to take my audio out from my pad sound, and I'm going to slide it into here, like so. So basically this is taking the audio out. I have this ducking pattern that's basically altering the volume, and you'll see that ducking happening here. And then it's going out here. So I'll now play this. So now it's ducking that sound. And we can see what that sounds like if we audio track here. This spot inside of my audio is where the sound of the drum is going to occur. And that's how it works. Of course, you'd have to tune this pattern here for your drums and all that kind of stuff. But that's basically how it's working. So to summarize, the way it works is we have 2 MIDI inputs going into a single MUX utility here, VST. This VST is described by these 2 controls, at least visually. So when it's playing, you can see the modulation happening, and then you can see the audio out popping up and down with the modulation. You can get more sophisticated where you can have balancing, and so it's not so falling so much. Like you could lift this stuff up and that kind of stuff, or you could lift these points up. So basically the MIDI comes in, we split it out. So this is our chords. So our chords go into our synthesizer, and from the synthesizer it goes into this output, and then the output goes to the output for the device. This mixer strip is modulated by this ducking pattern, which we showed you, or I showed you earlier. So every time it receives one of these MIDI inputs, it could be any note, it's basically going to trigger this ducking pattern to occur. It causes the audio to basically fall, because basically what we're doing is we're telling this ducking pattern to, it goes to the gain. So the gain actually falls for every one of these notes that it receives. And we can see that modulation happening here. So that's it. Pretty simple. Was very easy to put together, and I hope it helps. Thanks.